with God? How many times have you heard God loves you? How many times have you heard Jesus loves you? Here we are in New Orleans, 1998, serving God. The day I am concerned what people say about me is the day I hang my megaphone up. Heaven or hell when you die. Believe in Jesus Christ. Stop playing games with God. You've been playing games with God way too long. I don't know why you don't take the best deal in town. Jesus Christ dying for you, bleeding for you, rose from the dead for you, and you walk away like nothing.
Praise the Lord, people. I hope you're happy to be here. We got a nice program for you as well. Oh, hey, I just got bumped. Greg Coleman is actually probably going to take my place. See what happens? You let somebody come over and spend a night at your house. Next thing you know, they take over everything for you. So this is Brother Greg. I spent some time with him. He's going to be spending some time with me again over in Salt Lake City. So he came over, just wanted to hang around, and he saw the place where we do the radio program or the live feed program. And it was a pleasure working with him and seeing him. I do work with him when I go to Vegas. And like I said, we'll be spending some time together in Salt Lake City. By the way, Greg is the one who makes the coffee cups. He can put pictures on a wallet. He can put pictures on blankets. So if you go to Greg Coleman on Facebook, you might be able to get a little bit more information. I don't know if he has a website yet, but it might be good for you to go there. You want to give your wife, your kids, picture of your favorite animal on some socks. He's the guy that I would recommend to do it. He does all kinds of stuff. I'd like to talk a little bit about, there's this thing called unity. And when you don't have unity, you're going to have chaos. And you're not going to be able to do as much as you can unless you have that unity. And of course, the body of Christ is always going to be having problems and issues. If we had a born again, God-fearing, spirit-filled president, somebody would still gripe. Well, he doesn't believe this. Well, he doesn't believe in tongues. Well, he doesn't believe in getting baptized. Well, he doesn't, there's always going to be somebody or some groups that are not going to be content with anybody. Over the years, I've been preaching against abortion. As a matter of fact, there's people that are against abortion that I've been preaching against longer than you've been alive. There are people that go out and preach against this now that they're saved, and I've been doing it longer than you have. This isn't a bragamony. It's just simply to tell you a little bit about what's going to happen today and what the topic is today. Today, the topic is very simple. If you work with abortion groups, they do have a tendency to be angry with me, and some even have a hatred towards me. I'm going to give you the reason why, okay? Usually I don't bother with certain topics. People can say whatever they want to, But there are a number of people that every time they work with some abortion groups and they say, hey, praise God, I work with Brother Ruben. Oh, man, instantly slander. I'm going to give you the root of why I'm hated with a number of pro or anti-abortion groups. What you hear now today is that the typical I have no love, I'm filled with hate, I preach another gospel, I'm a Mason. These are things that are said now today. But there's a reason why those things have evolved into that today. And I'm going to get to the root of why many in that particular ministry have a dislike towards me, the root of the actual problem. As I said, I've been speaking against the unborn being murdered for quite some time, over 40 years. Some people just started, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and now they're an expert, and they'll tell you who's pro-life, who's pro-choice, who's the heretic, who's not. It's amazing how that works. As you know, I am not a one-issue preacher. Most of the people that are involved in abortion, that's all they preach about is abortion. You can go to a big event and they're going to be talking about abortion. You can go to a homosexual event and they're going to push against abortion. I mean, lesbians can't have babies. Homosexuals can't have babies. Not the way God and nature has intended. So why they wish to do that is beyond me. Nevertheless, that's what they feel compelled to do, and they do it. As for me, I don't do that. Okay, I'm not a one person that preaches on one topic everywhere that I go. Most of them disliked politicians. Even when Trump got in office, instantly the anti abortion people were all over this guy. He's not doing enough. He hasn't done it fast enough. He hasn't done this. They've been preaching last days and the destruction of America ever since abortion has been legal. Okay. I don't believe any of these anti abortion guys saw that the Supreme Court was going to overturn this 50-year of bad law because they were expecting the judgment of God. In fact, they were hoping for the judgment of God. Anything that had any problems in America, they blame it on abortion as if that's the judgment of God. Some people, they do the same thing to homosexuals. Everything that is bad in America, from a president to a law to maybe a storm, an earthquake, a flooding, it's all geared against homosexuals. That's ludicrous thinking. Okay, I don't believe that. And so, when we get a president that actually puts judges in office, and that Supreme Court turned over a 50-year law, you would think that they would be rejoicing for at least the crumb that falls from the master's table. No, that's not good enough for them. Let me tell you, even if abortion was illegal, it would still be going on. You're not going to stop a woman who wants to murder her baby. Okay, you need to get that through your head. It's not going to stop. Even if it was, you'd be put in prison. Somehow, these women will find a way to kill their babies. They don't want it to mix up with their career. They don't want it to mix up with, having to marry somebody. They don't want it to mix up with their body figure. Whatever the reason is, they will abort their babies. So stop blaming politics, no matter, because, like I said, if we had a born again, God fearing president, people will always find issues and they'd always find out a reason why they disagree with this guy. It's ludicrous. Again, no unity. So no wonder the devil does have his way. The late Paul Harvey used to say, and now the rest of the story. Again, I'm going to tell you why. They say I'm filled with hate, bad doctrine, I'm a heretic. That's what they say now. But what started the hatred with the anti abortion group is very simple. And I'm going to run it by you. Most of you have never heard it. So the next time you're with a anti-abortion group and you're preaching and you drop my name and they hiss and haw and warn you not to be around me, here's the reason why. There was a man by the name of Paul Hill, and back in the day, he stood against abortion. Okay, praise God. That's what he felt his calling was. He did encourage a lot of people to make a stand against abortion. Hill was born in Miami, Florida on February 6, 1954. He was raised in Florida. However, at age 17, he was charged with the assault of his father, and he had a problem with drugs, like most kids that age. And so he was jailed. And while in jail, he had a religious conversion. And that happened in 1973. And after that, he went to military school after he had his faith in God and rearranged his life for Jesus. He graduated from the Reformed Theological Seminary, where he studied under the founder of a Christian Reconstructionist. Okay, that's what he was taught. He went after that. He attended St. Paul Presbyterian Church, and he was ordained in 1984. Hill became a minister, and he associated with both the Presbyterian Church in America and the Orthodox Presbyterian Church. So he was a Presbyterian. Most of you don't know, but Presbyterians are basically Calvinists. They're 5-point Calvinists. I'm not even going to touch that. I'm just giving you a little bit of who Paul Hill was. He was excommunicated in 1993 because he appeared on TV and he was a spokesperson against abortion. And what he was saying, the Presbyterian Church did not stand by. He came up with a new term. Paul Hill used the word defensive action. Defensive action is another word for killing abortion doctors. Okay, I don't care how you slice it. A lot of the old time abortion guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Paul Hill endorsed killing abortion doctors. Hill was involved with a group called the Army of God. I knew them. When you're radical, you tend to know radical people. I knew them, they knew me. The Army of God was a group of people who believed it's the will of God to burn and bomb abortion clinics. God expects you to do that. Killing doctors, according to this Army of God and even Hill, was obeying God. And they considered this God's moral law. That's what they titled it. Under God's moral law, you can have this defensive action and put to death these people. Hill actually murdered an abortion doctor on July 29th, 1994. He shot the doctor, he shot the doctor's guard, and he shot the doctor's wife in the head. She survived. The other two did not. What happened was on that day, the 29th of July, 1994, Hill arrived at the clinic for one reason, and that's to assassinate that doctor, because that's what God wants him to do. So he waited behind some bushes, and when the doctor arrived in his vehicle, he walked over 3 shots, one for the doctor, one for the guard, and one for the wife in the back seat. Again, she survived. After he shot those 3 people, He placed his 12-gauge shotgun on the floor and waited for police to arrive at the ladies' center, this abortion clinic in Pensacola. This is what he did. He didn't run. He just dropped the gun and waited for them. Now, because I know a little bit about Paul Hill, I'm going to share a little bit of his testimony going to the clinic that day. This is in his own words. When he left his house to go to the clinic and to shoot this doctor, by accident, wink, wink, he passed the abortion clinic. He made a U-turn and came back away and passed it up again. He had to make another U-turn to park his car to go hide in the bush to shoot the doctor. I mean, could it be possible that this is God saying, don't do this? He knew the clinic. He scouted the area. He knew what time the doctor was coming in. And he passed the clinic not once, but twice. Nobody else is with him. He didn't have a cell phone. But God had him miss that clinic 2 times. To me, is that a sign of God? Of course, when the police came, Hill was arrested. In a lot of circles of the abortion people who were anti-abortion during that time, and again, some of you weren't even born. Some of you had no idea what it's like to stand outside an abortion clinic during this time. But Hill was arrested and spent almost a decade in prison. He did this in Florida, and so he knew it was going to be executed. I publicly argued as often as I could that Paul Hill was wrong. I made that very clear. People knew where I stood, even among the abortion people that were anti-abortion. They knew exactly what I believed in and why. My argument was anytime you change a name, there's sin. For example, fornication, it's called living together today. Sodomy, nah, we call that gay. Abortion, that's just a woman's right. They changed the name of this. It's no longer murder, it's just our right to have an abortion. Murder has been changed with these anti-abortion crowd to the word defensive action. And all those who believed in God's moral law, specifically those in the army of God, well, they believed that it's the will of God, and Paul here was considered a hero. He was considered a hero for what he did. You may disagree with it, but again, you weren't living back then. You have no idea what it was like with the anti-abortion people and Paul Hill. His name was brought up oftentimes and many times on many circles, many CC lists with the email. We didn't have Facebook or anything back then. You had some places where you can go and speak, type in something. And of course, you mentioned Paul Hill, and everybody understood that. A lot of people were in favor of what he did. They thought, I think what he did was fine. I wouldn't do it, but what he did, I can't really say was not of God. Paul Hill made a statement before his execution. His views on shooting the doctor was unchanged. He was not going to stop thinking that he did something wrong. He went to the grave believing he did God a service. He felt no remorse for his actions, and he expected a great reward in heaven for what he did. He left behind a manifesto, like most people do, which promised his backers that if they did this, they would shut down abortion. They would cause so much fear and chaos within the abortion community, they would shut it down. He believed that they need to follow his example. Hill was executed to death by lethal injection on September 3rd, 2003. I was at that execution. As a matter of fact, here's the banner that I flew when I was at that execution. I do have an abortion banner. And this is what this banner was actually taken from a news story. I don't know if Rich has it up. Okay. Um, but this is my abortion banner. I used it quite often. In fact, the vinyl letters for the name are done with cheap vinyl letters, so I can remove them and put another name in there if needed. I've used it here in California when there's an execution at San Quentin. I am in favor of execution. Okay. It's just, I'm not going to shoot somebody for Jesus. And I'll explain how that works. But I am in favor of execution. And what Paul Hill did was execute. He became exactly what he preached about. He was a murderer. He preached against murder and he murdered. It would be like a minister today speaking against homosexuality, and in somewhere down the road, he turns into a sodomite himself. Paul Hill died a murderer. He was praised by many people within the anti abortion community, except for me, of course. I publicly rebuked not only him, but all the things that he stood for. I believe that these doctors can still repent, and they have. We've got testimony of some doctors that have repented and now today speak out against abortion. He would have sent them to hell. We have strict laws around abortion clinics in certain states. You know why that happens? Not because they're picking on you, not everything rotates around you. It's because of what Hill and the army of God threatened to do to these clinics, that the government made laws. You got to stand here. You can't do this. You can't do that. It all fell because of guys like this. The abortion clinic said that they were fearful for their life. And because of that, the city would make a law on where you can stand, where you can't stand, where you can walk, where you can't walk, what you can do, that you can't do. Of course, Christians today, they think that it all happened because they're so powerful and mighty of God that they're changing the city to hinder their preaching. No, it's been going on for quite some time there, young man. You just don't even know the reason why, nor the history of it. He murdered these people in Florida because he knew he would get the death penalty. He knew action would be taken. Okay. If he would have shot the doctors here in California, he'd still be on death row. But in Florida, like Texas, like Mississippi, you get put to death fairly quick. They gave him 10 years. So he did it for a reason. There's thought behind what he did. He just wasn't inspired. Kind of like this tranny that went out and shot up the school. And they're trying to say how nutso wacko she is. It was well thought of. She knew exactly what she was doing. She left notes. She told people there was a lot more that he, or rather it, knew and wanted to make known. Paul Hill did the execution in the state, knowing that he would be executed, and he was assuming his execution was going to provoke many more to do what he did. My argument against these people that believed in shooting an abortion doctor was of God was not one abortion that was scheduled that day was stopped. They were rescheduled at another clinic on another date. Not one abortion was removed. They changed their mind, was stopped. It was just rescheduled. Now, the talk during that time, and I'm sure you can probably Google all this to find out, Paul Hill was considered a man of God, integrity and character, and he knew the will of God. And the media was running with this and making Christianity out to be a bunch of murderers. So I got vexed in my spirit, and I flew to Stark, Florida, where he was being executed. And I stood in that prison and preached in favor of his execution. The media was going to rip this apart and make it look like Christianity was just filled with a bunch of murderers. And I wanted to jump on that teeter-totter and even it out. No, he doesn't speak on behalf of Christianity, much like he doesn't speak on behalf of the Presbyterian Church, much like Jesus didn't say, go into all the world and kill sinners. Well, I hammered this down during his execution. And the way they set it up, because this was, a very touchy moment. When you got people that are going to bomb for Jesus, hey, they're no different than a Muslim. You don't think the police and our government was looking at these guys? So they put them in a barricaded area, and maybe about 35, 40 yards away, I and a few guys that were with me were in a barricaded area. I brought a megaphone. We preached to them the whole time. I've got my execution banner. We argued why Paul Hill should be put to death. And they hated my guts. When Hill was executed, they released these bullets and these balloons in the air to show. I don't know why, but that's what people do, is to show that they're sorry and they're going to be this individual is going to be missed. Well, one balloon didn't go very far and came right down. As a matter of fact, it fell in traffic and he got hit by a truck. So you don't think I took advantage of that? I was almost mocking them for glorifying in murder. As I said, the execution happened. Paul Hill is now dead. I had the police walk over to me, and he says, how long are you going to be here? I said, probably about another 10 minutes, and we're going to pack up and leave. He's already executed. There's no reason for us to be here. He says, because of these guys, we do have undercover police in there with them that they don't know. And the rumor that we're hearing is they are going to kill you. So for your own safety, we're going to escort you to your vehicle. In fact, we're going to give you a caravan on the highway through 3 different counties to make sure you're safe. He says, you have no idea how much these guys want to kill you. As I said, I do believe in execution. I don't have a problem with that. Paul Hill was not a man of God. It's not up to us to execute. According to Romans 13, it's up to our government to do this, not the church, our government. When you start having the church executing people, people like myself die. You don't want the Catholics to rule. You don't want one particular denomination to rule. There's always a bloodbath. And I hate to say this, when you get some people who believe in the Bible to rule and execute. Even with all of our flaws that we have, I don't mind the government doing it the way we do, have it in America. According to Romans 13, it's the function of the government. They're to be ministers of God for the good. Romans 13 goes on to say, "For he beareth not the sword in vain, for he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil." It's the job of the government to do this. Okay, some of you pacifist Christians will say, well, it's, revenge is of God. We shouldn't do that. God doesn't want us to have this revenge. No, God has a tendency to use humans to activate his revenge. And there are certain crimes that are worthy of death. I didn't do it. You shouldn't do it. It is up to the government to do that. And Florida executed him on that day. Once we got the police escort, a lot of rumor came out of that because of my stand. You people have no idea the division it caused within the anti-abortion movement at that time. Okay. Two names were brought up, Ruben Israel, Paul Hill. A lot of people disagreed with Paul, but they would have never gone to the execution. They may disagree with the guy, but they would never publicly speak against it. Hey, I went against the rules. And for that, I was hated. For that, I was told that I'm even worse than an abortion doctor. I was hated more than the abortion doctors by these Army of God guys. They made it very clear that they're going to kill me. I was warned if I ever went in certain states, I would get shot. I got a phone call from one of the guys, and I knew this guy personally, and he told me, he says, "I'm going to get you, Ruben. I know how you work. I know exactly what you do. And Mardi Gras is coming up, and the crowd's so thick. I'm going to get you, and nobody's going to know." Now, this is a guy who's a man of God, a Christian. And he says, "After I shoot you, I'm going to strip your clothes off, and I'm going to piss on your dead body." That's what he said. Okay, I just happened to be driving, and I had him on my cell phone, and my wife sat there listening to this conversation on how this guy's going to kill me. A brother, a good dear brother of mine, he's an ex-cop, and when he found out what was said, the threat that was made, and who these guys are, and they have every reason to do it. They think they're doing God a service. He came out to Mardi Gras, and he was my shadow. He said, "Brother, they ain't going to touch you. They touch you, they're going down." I took a step. This guy took a step. This guy's about 6'5". I mean, I went to the bathroom. He was outside that door. He'd go in and check it out just to make sure everything was fine. He's a cop. Well, obviously, it didn't happen. Maybe they tried. I have no idea. All I know is I'm still here. There was a big anti-abortion or pro-abortion rally in Washington, D.C. And so, hey, that pulls our name. We're there. We're going to preach against it. Well, these guys were there too. And one of them walks up to me and says, "Hey, Ruben, we do need to talk about this thing and all the stuff you said about Paul Hill. Do you mind if I just break away with you? We go take a little walk and talk about this?" I said, "Yeah." So we took a little walk. I knew this guy. I preached with this guy. He's been known to go to college campuses. The guy was an ex-boxer. If he pops you in the jaw, you're going to go down, knockout. And he's trying to woo me into some alley where he and I can talk. And I'm maybe 25 yards away from the group. And I turned to him. We're in front of a park. And I said, "There's a park bench right here." Why don't we have a seat? And when my face was turned towards the park bench, he nailed me 3 times right in the jaw. He dropped me. I was on my knees, and he took off running. Because these guys, shoot abortion doctors, they're well aware of how they're going to do things. So as he's running away, he's already changing clothes. It just so happened that there was a motorcycle officer across the street who saw the whole thing. Of course, some of the brothers that were there, they saw the whole thing. They came running too. Was able to shake it off and went out there and actually finished preaching against these women who are in favor of abortion. As we left D.C., we're going back to the church that has hosted us, and I get a phone call from this guy, and he's with, I don't know, about a dozen guys from the Army of God, and they're just laughing, having a good time. He says, "This we're not over. There's more coming." And then he says, "You know what we all are doing? We're celebrating. We're drinking beer and we're all eating a Reuben sandwich." And then I can hear those guys that are with them just laughing. "We're still after you." So when I say, these guys would like to have me dead, it's getting close to like the Apostle Paul, where people waited outside the gate and took a vow, "I won't eat until this guy's dead." These anti-abortion people considered me much worse than the abortion doctor. Much worse. The Bible teaches in 1 Peter 4:15 and 16, "But let none of you suffer as a murderer, or as a thief, or as an evildoer, or as a busybody in other men's matters. Yet if any man suffer as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glory God on his behalf." Don't suffer to be murdered as a murderer. Paul Hill, um, he died a murderer. I don't care how you slice it. And because of that, I'm hated more than you'll ever know. You're going to talk to some abortion guy. He doesn't know the root and the reason and where it all got started. That's where it all started. That's the genesis. Now, today, I'm just a heretic. I have no love, whatever they say now. I'm a Mason. But the reason where you get all of this slander is it started there. And we had an email CC list that was probably, maybe 100 people, 150 people. And there were a few of us who were arguing against shooting abortion doctors. We were outnumbered maybe, 50 to 1. And they were defending why they were doing it. Funny thing is, when we asked them, "Are you going to do it?" They said, "Well, I don't know if I'm elected to do that. I don't know if God has preordained me to do that." It's kind of interesting that some of these guys, the majority of them are Calvinists. Brother Ron and I got an email from an individual, and this individual says, "Guys, I listened to your argument, and I was going to kill a doctor. I scouted the place. I knew what time he came in. I knew what time he left. I knew what weapon I was going to use. As a matter of fact, had it not been for all of the arguments you guys did, I probably would have already been in jail. But based upon what you guys said, I had to rethink my position and I didn't do it. Unfortunately, I can't say that with this group. It's like a biker gang or a cult. They'll kill him too. He's now in bed with me. He's now just as guilty as I am, and he knows what they're going to do to me. He hears it. Like I said, during the execution, man, this cop came over and he says, "We've got some undercover guys in that crowd. Ruben, they want to kill you." Escorted me out of the prison and passed a couple of counties. We had police in front of us, we're behind them, and we had 2 or 3 squad cars behind us. I mean, they gave us an escort out of there. I don't know what was said. All I do know is these guys hated my guts. I hate abortion, but I'd take the bullet for the doctor because he'd go to hell. I hate homosexuality with a passion, but I'll take the bullet so that sodomite doesn't burn in hell. I hate idolatry, and I'll take the bullet for that idol worshiper so he doesn't burn in hell. I'll take the bullet for the drunkard, for the fornicator, for those that are involved in sin. I know I'm going to heaven. He's a sure bet going to hellfire. So I don't have a problem with that. Even though I speak against it with a very hard message that even our critics say it's unloving, I'll take that bullet so that that guy wouldn't go. I know I'm going to heaven. They're not. So things like this happen in my life. You know, there's debates going on all the time. My Facebook page gets, people put their arguments that they have on their page, on my page, as if I'm going to get involved. Let me tell you something. My entire life has been a debate, a massive debate, more than you'll ever know. So if I don't get involved in your little puny 15 guy debate, you can question my salvation. My life has been a debate. Timothy McVeigh, remember him? He was executed June 11th, 2001, for the murders of 168 people, 19 of whom were children. He injured more than 680 people for that 1995 bombing in Oklahoma. Timothy McVeigh, you remember him? Well, what provoked me about this was the media likened him to Jesus Christ. And the right wingers, man, they ate this stuff up. He was 33 years old, and he was a white male. And he was put to death because he made a statement. His motive for bombing that building in Oklahoma was because the government bombed and burned down those believers in Waco, Texas, in 1993, and that killed 76 people. So McVeigh thought he'd even out the teeter-totter. He had no conscience about doing this in Oklahoma. And I know some of you tinfoil wearing hats, it's the government, it's just call it what it is. He went to the grave knowing he did that. Well, because they're likening him to Jesus Christ, and I want to defend my Lord, much like I want to defend the God of the Bible, which is why I went to Paul Hill's execution. I went to Timothy McVeigh's execution. This was the first time the federal government was involved in an execution. Okay, this ain't a state execution. This is federal. It's been decades before the federal government executed somebody, and this time it had Timothy McVeigh. The execution was done at a prison in Terre Haute, Indiana, and again, this guy was likened to a Muslim terrorist. Okay, you talk about high security. This isn't just state police and troopers. You've got our actual government involved in this. They're major security too, as I'm sure they were with the Paul Hill situation. There was, this is how they worked it out. Timothy was going to be executed, and because of the very touchy execution, this thing can ignite. So what the government came up with is there's 2 parks. If you're in favor of Timothy McVeigh's execution, you go here. And if you are disagreeing with the execution, you go there to this park. You get inside our buses, and we'll take you, and you will be away from each other. We don't want to have any of you provoke and do some stupid things. All your cars are going to be checked. The only signs you can have are handheld signs, and we're going to be very strict. You take a bus in, and we'll have several buses depending on how many people are there. Well, each camp had, literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And I had a pastor, Pastor Mark, picked me up at the airport, and we went straight to the execution there at Terry Hunt. And when we found out that you can only hold handheld signs, and when we had banners, I thought, well, just let's take the poles back to the car. Let's just take the banner and let's see what we can get away with. So we did. In order for you to get inside the bus, you have to show ID. They take all your ID information down on a clipboard, give you back your ID, and then you can go inside the bus and be seated, and they'll take you into the federal prison. Well, when Mark and I came up, we're holding these big banners without, poles. And the officer looked at me and said, "Come on in." Told Mark, "Come on in." Didn't say a word. We got in the bus. We sat there. Mark says, "Do you know the guy?" And I said, no, I don't. I'm not going to say anything. We're in the bus. No ID, and we have our banners. So we unrolled our banners and we held them that day, and we preached. And almost every news media from CNN all the way down was interviewing us, and we made it very sure that Timothy McVeigh is nothing like Jesus Christ. Our government should have him executed for the crime that he did, and he's going to burn in hell. That was very crystal clear. So after the execution, I was a little bit younger at the time. I told Mark, let's roll up and run to the bus. So we ran to the bus. They took us back to our parking lot. And I said, these people don't have a clue what's coming. So we ran over to the other park and took a bus, or we waited for them at the other park. So when their buses came, we were set up and we preached to all those people who were in favor that Timothy McVeigh is a hero, a man of God, a patriot, and shouldn't have been executed. Remember, I don't get into your little debates. This thing caused such a drift with all of your patriotic militia type people. Once again, my lovely name was on their hit list. You're going to die for what you said. McVeigh was considered a prophet to these people. And I'm saying he's burning in hell. And if you kill, I'm going to be outside of your execution with your name on my sign telling you you're worthy of hell. They're not used to this. They're the militia. The police kind of even back away from them. Well, we're right at their park preaching hardcore big time to these guys. Preaching against McVeigh, their prophet, their God. And of course, this caused a lot of division. It was because of that preach that I've been accused of being FBI. It was because of that preach. You'll still hear I'm accused of being a government agent. There's a reason why they say this. They may not understand the roots of it, but this was one of the ones that did fuel that. They believed that I was never, ever taken down because I'm Teflon and I have the government backing me. This is why I can get away with so much stuff. These things don't just start overnight. There's a reason why. There's reasons why those, anti-abortion people hate me. There's reason why some of these people will say that I'm some type of a government agent. It has nothing to do with that at all. And of course, we've gotten so big debates when I worked with Fred Phelps and the Westboro Baptist Church. That caused a big division within the people who were against homosexuality. So when I get into a debate, it's not just one or two guys. Of course, that caused a greater debate when I did a lot of certain things with certain people, and my name was attached to them. My life has been one big, massive debate, more than you'll ever know. So the next time you toss your debate on my Facebook page and I don't jump in, uh, you know, I may not consider it to be worthy of even my debate. Maybe you're doing fine. I don't need to jump in there. But don't ever assume my life is, just to get along with everybody. Usually, when I make a big splash, it's more like a belly flop, and it's a big wake, and it causes a lot of problems. So this is the other side to why many of those that are anti-abortion dislike me. They don't even know because it's evolved into other things. But you get some of these old time guys, and they're dying. And let me tell you, you drop my name, they're going to dislike you. There's a professor out over in Ohio State. She used to teach world religion. She's an atheist, believe it or not. World religion. And we'd come to Ohio State in Columbus. I've even stayed at her house, and we preach. And she was just so amazed by our stand for God and what we had to say. Just absolutely shocked. And she knew when we were coming in because after we were on campus, her students would have questions for a couple of weeks on things that we said and done. And so she had some of these abortion guys, Army of God, come to campus speaking against abortion. And she actually invited them in her classroom and she wanted to talk about abortion. Now, let me tell you, this person grew up as a Baptist. She knew her Bible, she knows her Bible. She's an atheist and now she teaches world religion. So she has these, I think there are about 3 or 4 of them, Army of God guys, and they're not messing around. Yes, those people deserve to die. I have no question about it. This is the will of God. So her students were just stunned. Well, she contacted me after it was over, and she says, I dropped your name, Ruben. Those guys want to kill you. So there's a reason why some of these anti abortion groups despise me. If you wish to believe what they say, knock yourself out. It's not going to bother me. It never has. If you think I'm a government agent, hey, there's the root of the problem. I went to McVeigh's execution. Obviously, the police allowed us to go in, didn't have to show any ID. Even the pastor that was there was shocked. He thought I knew the guy. I did not. We were the only 2 guys holding huge signs when it clearly made a point. Only handheld signs, no sticks, no woods, no poles, and it has to be small and condensed. So because of that, obviously, I've got to be some kind of government agent. And because the guys who were against McVeigh didn't have enough common sense to come over to our camp, we went to their camp. I don't just say something over the internet. I go right to the source and preach to those guys. Every once in a while, I'll get an email. They kind of forget the Army of God that I'm on still their big CC list. And every once in a while, I'll get an email, brother, the Lord is telling me we need to start prison ministries. Yep. And we need to go after the guys in prison who are in jail for arson. Those are the ones we need to win over to the Lord. Get them saved, and they know how to burn. Those are the guys we need to win over. They still are around today. They're not as active because most people that are anti-abortion wouldn't take it that far. Those guys did, And if you don't think the government was hounding them guys, you don't know much about our government. I'm sure it was. And somehow my name was intertwined with what they do. But I hope you understand this is why those groups despise me. It's not like, I ripped them off or I said something about them personal. And let me just say this, if you want to kill somebody for Jesus, I'm going to be outside of your execution in favor of your execution. Just ask some of these old abortion guys that are still around. Oh, by the way, the guy that punched me in the face and took off and ran and told me he was going to pee on my body and said that he was, eating a Reuben sandwich. This guy left his wife. He's involved in drugs. Matter of fact, I think he might even be in jail. His two sons were involved in drugs, and they're in and out of jail. Only his wife remains faithful, and I still talk with her. So I didn't have to rebuke the guy. Oh, he made it very clear. I can bump into you anywhere. You can be at a big event that I'm at a big event. I may be a biker. I may be at the bike event and you're there. I will kill you. So he's no longer a Christian. I don't think he was. And he's now paying the price for what he believes. He turned his back on God. And not only did he get destroyed, but his family. And many of those guys from the army of God, they're ill. They don't go out anymore. They can't speak. They're very concerned because they're looking over their shoulder on what they did. There's a doctor today who wanted to debate me on whether we should kill abortion doctors or not. This was back then. So we had a date set for this public debate. And probably about a day and a half prior to the debate, I backed off. I contacted this brother and I said, I don't want to do this because you're just about ready to graduate to become a doctor. If this video gets out, it's going to ruin your actual career. Take me over to some coffee and you and I will get a nose. But I'm not going to do this now. The guy is a doctor. He's got his own branch. And had he debated me on this, they would have probably gave him a lot of issues. And I doubt nobody would want to go to him. Doctors are to save lives, not to kill people. I don't know if he's modified his position or not, but I didn't do it. Not because I was nervous. I'm debating a doctor. I didn't want it to destroy his reputation. And I'm glad I did that. He does know where I stand. It's not like I'm going to change. So anyway, I hope this sheds light to you. We're going to bring Rich back on. And if you have any questions, even about the tranny who shot the people, let's hear what you have to say.
Okay. So, Ruben, I got a question here. Maybe you're not with the federal government, but are you with the federales?
I don't know. I'm still waiting for my check. That'd be nice if I could, but if they kill me, it's because I don't talk Mexican. I don't eat enough hot sauce.
Well, it's funny, Ruben, about your topic today because those AHA guys sent me this fake money about the states being enslaved.
Wow.
Yeah. Enslaved states, Harriet Tubman, give me liberty or give me death, with her holding a gun.
Wow.
So. Yep.
Wow, interesting. And Rich, you've known a couple of these abortion guys that for some reason didn't really care for me too much, did they? Did you?
Yeah, I actually had a couple in my home. Good family. I have no personal issues with them whatsoever. I love the family. But when your name came up and they realized you and I were friends, that started a whole different conversation at my dining room table. The one you sat at, by the way. But I was able to talk to them for an hour, and my first question was, have you ever met Ruben or talked to him yourself? And the answer was no. And I says, well, maybe you should try doing that. And I did soften them up. I don't know if they ever reached out to you or not. That was about 2 years ago. But I do know that conversation has not taken place since. Your name never gets brought up to me again from that family. But,
yeah, you know what? When we were arguing with these guys, Rich, we brought up a Bible verse. If you know that it's right and you don't do it, that's sin.
Right.
So I challenged all of them. If you know it's right and you don't shoot a doctor, that's sin. Tell me now if you're going to do that. And then they started arguing among themselves. Don't say that. This is why he's a cop. He's trying to get us to confess. That's what he's doing. And, we'll indict ourselves if we answer his question. I simply said, have you done it? If you know it's right, I know it's wrong, so I don't do it.
That's right.
But if you know it's right, it's sin. Maybe you guys are weak and lukewarm, but did you even buy a bullet for the guy? Did you even give him a gun? I mean, tell me, how far did you go? Don't talk to him. Don't bring this up. Don't answer his question. He's working with the government and they want to nail us. It's amazing. No, I'm just taking you for what you say. That's all. Just kind of like we go to the Mormons this weekend. Hey, I'm going to tell you what your prophet says, what's in your books, and how wrong it is. I'm not going to tell you much Bible. You obviously don't believe that. I'm going to show you the error in your own group.
And like you said, before we got started, we were talking. I was saying how when I go out we got to the Pride events or the drag queen things, we see them there handing out abortion tracts at Pride events and drag shows. I don't think they know where we're at. I mean, those guys can't even get abortions.
That's right. They can't get pregnant, let alone have an abortion.
So, one issue, guys, like you said.
Unfortunately, that's just it.
Let's see. Somebody asked a question. If you knew somebody, I got to go back up and look for it. Where is it? Media time. Where is it here? And again, if you ask a question, just always remember, you guys, there's a lot of comments that come through, and I may not catch them, so you got to ask again. Somebody said, do you know Flip Benaham?
Yes, I know Flip. He's a good guy. He learned to keep his mouth shut. He didn't get involved in it. And yes, Flip is still very active out there. He's got a good sized group. Anything that I bumped into him a couple times over in Washington, D.C. when they have something big. But yes, I like Flip. He's fine.
Any other questions? Now's the time to ask. He just gave you the story. You guys want to know a lot of where the slander comes from. There's the etymology of it. So,
and a lot of people just don't know. They don't, they just they've never heard my side, and I'm not one that really defends it. But I've heard it a couple times just this week, and I thought, you know what? I'll just bring it up in the program and just let it fly wherever it goes. If you believe shooting abortion doctors are for God, hey, I'd like to hear what you have to say. Bring it on in.
Yeah, I don't see it in the Bible. Let's and what year was that happened in? That you
Which one?
The execution.
I removed my notes, so I don't have them. I think it was like in 92.
So here it is 20 some odd years later, almost 30 years later, and you're still getting asked about it.
Yes, I am. And to show you Paul Hill's vision that he was going to provoke others to do it, never happened.
Never happened.
Never happened. A lot of those guys imploded, because they were so paranoid with the government, they had to watch what they say. A lot of them turned sick. A lot of them turned back to the world that they came out of. And so, not much fruit out of something like that.
Do you think we risk getting shot if we preach in Nashville this weekend at the tranny day of visibility?
No, I think that most part they're going to try to keep a good profile. And so somehow the media will turn it around that you're the bad guy, or somehow they'll do that. But I think it's good to preach at that. Matter of fact, if I did, I'd say there should be a 3-year waiting period for a tranny to get a weapon. You can't trust these guys. So I would definitely try that. And the problem isn't guns. The problem is this individual. Yeah. They're trying to clean her up like she had some mental problems. Let me tell you, she put a lot of thought into this. For somebody who had mental problems, she was very precise on what she was going to do, what he was going to do, than most people do. She knew exactly what to do.
Well, I say this, they say you can't have a gun if you're mentally ill, right? That's the rule. Well, then I believe that transgenders, none of them should ever have guns, because if they're so messed up in the head that they think that chopping off their genitals or mutilating their body is okay, I don't think I'd want to give anybody a weapon that thinks that that's a good idea.
It was once that just being a homosexual was a mental disorder.
That's right.
There's court cases and many doctors that have even had agreed with that. So we've lost that over the years. And this shouldn't be a surprise to any street preacher.
No, not
because when you go down to a homo parade, it's these guys that are spitting, throwing things at you. They're just filled with rage. They're filled with rage. So I believe it's going to eventually come out that she was molested by somebody in the school, and now she's the poor victim. They're going to flip it somehow. They're not going to go after her. They're going to flip it somehow to make her the poor victim.
And, well, they're doing it already. What they're doing is they're saying it was the drag queen. Now, remember, I still have some affiliation in Tennessee there, and I get a lot. And I know the manifesto hasn't released yet, but from what I understand, from people that I know that are close to law enforcement and whatnot, she did this because she despised Christianity, and she despised that drag show bill and the ban on transgender surgeries for minors. That's why she did this, and she went to that.
And evidently, her parents were Christian.
Yes.
And her parents were very angry with her position and what she was doing with her life.
Well, she booby-trapped the house, too. That not a lot of people don't know that, but she booby-trapped her own house where she lived with her parents. I actually have a picture of the inside of her bedroom, so it's pretty nasty.
Oh, really?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
Amazing.
Pride.
And she's nuts, right?
Well, the tranny thing is actually new for her. She was not always a transgender. That's only a recent development, and they're saying that she was radicalized in that movement. That's why they don't want to let that manifesto out, because it's going to show the mind of somebody who's been radicalized and what they think. So Governor Lee wants it out. This Tennessee Republicans want it out, but the LGBT groups do not. They are trying to stop them from releasing that.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised, Rich, if they do give a date to release that manifesto, if there'll be some big news story to compete with it.
Yeah. And you're not a conspiracy guy either. So to say that shows that's just the way things go. It's a conspiracy,
yes.
But that's what they do.
Yes, it is.
And then somebody asked, saints need to be. So here somebody says, God bless you, Ruben and Rich. Love you, brothers. This is from Gabriel Riveros. You met him down in Florida, I believe.
Yes.
Did you guys hear about the shooting in Tennessee, which obviously we did? I believe saints need to be armed so we can protect our brethren.
Brother, that's a good point. I don't have a problem with that. You know how much feedback we get, negative feedback, because when we go out and preach, we normally have some security guys.
Right.
And their function is to remove angry sinners who are rushing in, trying to grab the signs, the banners. And we get a lot of criticism for that, because they're saying, don't you trust Jesus? Why don't you trust Jesus? And why do you guys need to do that? Why is it you guys have a stone face in front of those preachers? We're trying to resolve the problem before it becomes a problem. Now, those same people that are saying that are now saying, maybe we need guns at some of these facilities. So, they can't go both ways. I think there's not a problem. God bless the police for going in there as quickly as they did and taking this individual out. But I think churches should have armed guards, and most churches,
Yep.
believe it or not, do. They just don't advertise it. And I don't have a problem with that. We live in America. If you're not a felon, you should own a gun. And if owning guns with everybody having a weapon, that there'll be more shootouts. Tell me this. When was the last time we had a massive shooting at a gun store? When was the last time there was a massive shooting at a gun show? I mean, you got all these guns around here. Something ought to snapped.
Right.
But not one massive shooting at a gun show. That guy wouldn't even be able to pull back the trigger without getting turned into Swiss cheese.
Not even that, but I argue, Ruben, I think some felons should be allowed to have guns, only because the Constitution does not give and you can have guns except. Because I know people, I know a young man, he's in Idaho, he's in Pocatello, Idaho. Not a bad guy, he's in his mid-30s. Did a little stupid thing when he was 18, not a violent crime, has not committed a crime ever since been born again, and he still can't have a gun because it was a felony. I don't see why he can't have a gun.
Yeah, I think there's some states, and it may even be in Florida, where they waive that after a certain amount of time. But then there are some states that are a little bit harder. And to me, again, you get a school shooting, that child, that person, whoever's involved, should be executed within 6 months. Okay? When you make a glorious thing out of him, that he's some celebrities, that's going to only incite children to do this. So, hey, they don't have to worry about it. They get a nice meal. They get their own room. They don't have to worry about getting raped because they murdered 14 people. Yes. So we make it very glamorous. That guy should be put to death in 6 months. That's what the government needs to do. Make it sound like you do this, you're going to die.
Homosexuals get all the free sex in prison. Why would they not want to go there?
Oh, you got that right. You got that right. Hey, man, I tell you, they'll be living like a queen in there.
Well, and now this is the narrative. So this guy, whether saying, we don't condone it, but we understand. This is what happens when you don't let us groom your children, when you ban drag shows. So now think about this, Ruben. What they're saying now is, let us groom your kids or we'll kill them. That's what it's coming down to. So I actually said to somebody, I said, see, that's the difference. See, for you, children are props. They're objects. They're not people. They're just a means to an end for you. You don't care. That's why it's easy for you to do what you do to them. And that's the narrative they're pushing now. If you read all the different news articles and whatnot.
What's the terminology, Rich, when somebody dies in war, but it's not that big of a thing?
What do you mean, not that big of a thing?
When you get innocent people that die in war, there's
casualties.
A name for it. There you go. That's exactly what they look at your children as. Nothing more than casualties.
Right.
Just casualties of war, because their main goal is to do something else, and they'll take this with them.
Right. Because even though that person killed 6 people, everybody's talking about the kids, but she killed 3 adults too. Now it's going to be, see what happens when you do these things. I mean, I am of the position, Ruben, you can tell me if you think I'm wrong on this. I believe that LGBT HIV group are a bunch of terrorists because they are literally terrorizing people in order to get what they want. Politically, ideologically, they're terrorists. And they should be labeled as such, in my opinion.
They not only maybe go after you and shoot you, but they'll find out where you live. They'll find out where you work. They'll boycott your business. So yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, one of the guys that was shot and killed was a black guy.
Yes, he was.
I wonder, Rich, if Black Lives Matter is going to be at any of these tranny events, for what they did to the black guy.
Who seemed to be a decent guy, too. 14 grandchildren. Seemed like a family man, a decent man, out working, just trying to, pay his bills and everything else. And
14 grandkids?
14 grandchildren he had, yeah.
Well, that's why he should die. If you were a tranny, that's why he should die.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, I don't think you're going to have Black Lives Matter go anywhere near this.
Well, they do want to promote transgenderism. It says it, and they're used to anyway before we sue them, which you jumped on that lawsuit. You remember that, Ruben, when we were suing
Yes,
the
I did.
DC? So
Yes, sir.
that was one of the arguments he made, and they removed that from their website. They were trying to push the transgender ideology more than the Black Lives Matter stuff.
Yeah,
It was all tranny stuff.
that was quite some time ago, because I remember I was on your coattail on that.
Yeah, you signed a thing that agree, kind of join in on that to say you agree with, hey, that should be removed. Ultimately, it didn't get removed. Obviously, they dismissed it because I didn't live in Washington, D.C., they said, so we didn't have standing. But it was a loophole, I believe, for the judge to get out of it because, well, I believe they were afraid of what happened if he said, yeah, that sign's got to go.
That's right. There you go. There's your terrorist, Rich.
Yep.
There's your terrorist.
T-Bird wants to know, what if one does not ever speak against abortion? Is that a sin?
Well, no, it's not a sin. It's just I would say if you had an abortion, you definitely want to preach against it. That would be meat for repentance. You don't have to go outside of an abortion clinic. It would be nice, but when the topic comes up, you definitely have to speak against it. You should say, this is wrong, this is horrible, and it even people that have had abortions, you may not want to go out there and tell them they're all going to hell. You were forgiven of much, so you might want to tone down your message. Yeah. But for those who have never had an abortion, hey, it's easy for us. Don't try to quench this Holy Ghost in us when we preach against it. We don't make the woman the victim. The victim is always going to be that baby.
That's right.
Not the woman. The victim is that baby that's getting murdered for no particular reason. But I'd like to see more Christians, T-Bird, speak against it. It would be nice. It would be great if you had 500 Christians out there, every day outside of an abortion clinic.
Now, Ruben, I want to just mention this, because you hear all the time the rhetoric of, if we could save one life, ban guns. Okay, well, let's ban transgenders, because here I have a list. In the last 3 weeks, there has been over 11 acts of violence by the transgender community. A woman in New Zealand literally had to flee because of the attacks on the physical violence against her. Austin, Texas, the capital, had literal physical fights breaking out, violence all over the capital from transgenders because they were upset that they were going to ban trans surgeries for kids. Obviously, the tranny that murdered 6 people here in Nashville. Transgender activists assaulted. One assaulted a cop, and the other assaulted a state rep. Bo Diddle was assaulted at Unity Church in Cookeville, Tennessee by a transgender supporter. The next day, he was assaulted by a transgender out in Nashville, punched in the face. Posey Parker was assaulted by a transgender on March 25th, 2023. And then in Sacramento, California, on March 15th, there were 3 reports of assaults and several thefts from trans activists in Sacramento, California. So wouldn't it be worth to ban transgenders if it's going to save one life?
Wow, you got that right. And Rich, I'll tell you, did you find that on the media?
Yes. Every one of them was public stories on media sites. That's where I grabbed them.
I would say that's just a drop in a bucket because the media technically doesn't like to push stuff like this.
That's right.
So I would say there'll probably be a lot more, but the media doesn't want to be boycotted. The media, they had to, and they probably just kept it at a local news story rather than let it go out. But what you mentioned, I'm sure it's just a small amount of what happens with these guys. Absolutely.
Well, and if you look historically, remember they say Christians are the responsible for all the atrocities in history and the wars. Well, there's a book an encyclopedia called the Encyclopedia of Wars. And out of 1,763 known recorded historical conflicts, 6.87% had religion as their motive. And when you take out Islam, only 3% had anything to do with Christianity. So it seems that the atheists are more of the problem here than Christians. So I think atheists should not be allowed to have guns, and history proves that.
Yeah, that's good. That's a great stat. And what was the name of that book again?
The Encyclopedia of Wars. And it's an encyclopedia. You can't argue it. It's legitimate facts. And there's another book called The Great Big Book of Horrible Things. It gives religion, out of 100 deadliest atrocities, a religion was responsible for 11 of them, and that includes Islam and Catholicism.
Wow.
And with those two, it's still only 11 out of 121.
Wow, interesting.
So,
That's unique.
so who's the problem
It's
here?
Yeah, absolutely. You get into some of these dictators, and man, I tell you, they kill millions of people.
Right.
But we don't hear about it. I'm going to sound like a horrible person, but when you have the Jews owning Hollywood, they're going to speak more against Hitler. They're not going to talk about some of these other
Right.
dictators, because of the Holocaust and what he's done to them.
Right.
But yeah, some of these other dictators, they kill just as much as Hitler, if not more.
Yep. And it just, out of the you mentioned Timothy McVeigh. If you actually listen to Timothy McVeigh, he hated God. He was an atheist. He did not. That's why I said when they compared him to Jesus Christ, I'm like, did you ever listen to the guy talk? He was
Yeah.
not religious at all.
Yeah, I think what they were trying to do was the militia that was
Right.
trying to get the religious group to jump in. And they were saying, hey, 33 years old, male, a Christian, the government hates him. I mean, they're trying to paint this guy up. And
Right.
once they did that, I'm like, you ain't going to talk about my Jesus.
That's
I'm
right.
going there. It doesn't matter what you guys say. I'm buying my ticket. We're going to even it out right now.
Well, it makes me wonder because even then, when the tranny, mass shootings are done by white Christian males, right wing. I said, really? So I went and dug and looked. None of these guys, none of the shooters were Christian, or none of them were. They were all liberal, almost every single one of them, except for the Islamic guy. But they were all liberals. There wasn't a Christian in any of these mass shootings. There was not one of them was called himself a Christian.
Now, you had a couple of Muslims. You had one husband and wife here in California that shot up his business. And then, of course, you had the Muslim at the gay bar.
Yep. And you
I
had the
don't. I
one
can't
that
remember.
that was down in Florida.
Yes.
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 I can't remember what it's called, but yeah. Then you had the one in Colorado. Again,
Yes.
that was a transgender. So you brought up a good point about McVeigh. The media is spinning this, and Christians, we're letting him do it, when in reality, none of it's true. There's not a single follower of Jesus that has ever committed a mass shooting.
That's right. And if you look at the McVeigh and the Paul Hill, there was just a handful of us that went out there and evened out that teeter-totter.
Yeah.
This is not of God. McVeigh should have been put to death.
Yeah.
He didn't have. Hey, I despise what Reno did to Waco. I think Reno should be put to death, but it's not my job.
That's
and what McVeigh did is worthy of the death penalty. Rich, you brought up. What about how many guns have actually saved robberies and lives?
That's right.
Everybody knows that universal sound of a shotgun.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You get some guy that's going to come inside the house, all you have to do is pump that shotgun.
Yep.
And let me tell you, he's well aware of what that is. It's even much better than a barking dog. So, is there a stat that even gives us how many people a shotgun has diffused? No, but you can bet the numbers are high.
There's no stat, but it was on the news today. They were showing, if you listen and watch, a lot of things are getting taken care of by people who are armed, that are stopping rapes, robberies, murders. It happens a lot. And, in a state like where I live, everybody's got a gun. They walk around like it's the Wild West out here. Everybody literally has a gun on their hip. Wherever you go, you'll see it. You don't see mass shootings happening here.
Like I said, I can't remember the last mass shooting at a gun show. A lot of guns out there. You'd figure it works. I posted something on my Facebook page that if you fly an American flag in front of your house, most bad guys will know you have a gun.
Yep.
And they might go elsewhere. So I just got a new flag, a pretty good sized flag that's been flying in front of my house. But normally my garage has one huge flag. But your bad guy, he has enough common sense to know, this is, it's kind of like if you need, if you need KY jelly, you look for the rainbow flag. There's, certain things that you know.
And You know, you mentioned about churches. So when I was in Tennessee, Ruben, we actually had a state trooper come to the church we were going to, and he gave a lesson and said why every male member of a church should be armed. And not only, he showed us how these crazy guys can come in, and he says when they want to hurt you, they don't need a gun to do it. And he showed us how, like, with balls, like the kids that play with, how they can crack a pew and take the leg and kill you with it. He was showing they can use anything in that church as a weapon. And that he taught and gave a thing in Tennessee. He goes to churches, the state trooper, and teaches them that every church should have armed people in the church, and they should have people outside the church at the doors that are armed. So so if they get past them, you got to get through the armed people inside the church.
Nothing wrong with that, brother. I think it's using wisdom, and we live in a society where that can help at any given time. So to me, I think it's you're not doubting your faith. No. You know, if you think that you're doubting your faith, then I would recommend you don't have auto insurance. If you are,
or
if you can't have homeowners. I mean, stand up for it and say, no, God's going to protect me.
Question for Ruben. Do you know what Operation Paperclip is?
I don't think I do.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Ruben and Rich, besides Matthew chapter 28, verse 18 through 20, what other passages are good to use when debating with a oneness heretic? Just look at my Facebook page for the past 2 weeks and you'll find a lot of stuff there.
Yeah. And you know what? There is no one verse.
No. Okay.
You're going to have people say, just give them this verse and it knocks it out. No, that's not true. Same thing applies to Mormons.
Yeah.
So to somebody, it may take that verse. To somebody else, it might take another verse. To somebody else, it may take an analogy, a parable. So the more ammunition you have, the better you are.
Yeah.
And, Rich has done a fantastic job. The guy, Quincy, that seems to be stirring the pot on this, I asked him to come on his program. We'll do a debate. It won't be a number of us that he knows. But I'll get another guy. I haven't heard from him. So I don't know why he hasn't responded. But and it's not going to be one verse. Rich has done a fantastic job hammering and hammering and hammering. But yet when you read the other side, well, he never answered my question. Well, he don't know. He took it out of context. Well, the original language reads. It's, sometimes it's just very blunt. How about just simply saying you refuse to do it? You refuse to admit it.
And to be clear, we love Quincy. We have no animus towards, we love Quincy. So it's not even trying to go at the guy. Quincy's a good friend of mine. So this isn't personal as far as that. I care about the guy enough to know that I want him to be saved. And that's why I'm hammering as hard as I am, because I actually do care about the guy.
Yeah. In fact, I know Quincy, his family, his wife, and I spent some time with Quincy on New Year's. So it's not like he's just some guy that I disrespect. Again, I think he got caught up in something, and he's going to debate it. A lot of his debate has everything to do with, see this guy, look at this YouTube channel. And this is one thing that I want to make sure that whoever comes up, because we've asked this. It wasn't just Quincy. Hey, anybody that thinks they can argue oneness, bring it on over.
Nobody's done it. I asked Quincy's pastor. I said, you guys will go on 7 people against one on a debate on your channels, but Ruben has been asking for weeks, and none of yous, your pastor, right? None of yous will come on here. Why is that? And I'm not saying I'm going to debate it. I'll stay out of it. I'll keep my mouth shut. Ruben will debate it.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to be involved in it. I'll just moderate it. But there's another brother, and I had one person did respond. Who am I going to debate? And because I didn't tell him who, he wouldn't come. So I mean, listen, if you know you got a knockout punch, I don't care who he's going to be in the ring with you. You'll still fight the guy. Who do I care about who I'm going to fight? So again, if anybody knows Quincy, have him get a hold of me, and we'll set this thing up. It'll be done in a professional manner. It's not that he's going to get dogpiled on. No. The guy that he'll debate will respond in kind. So, but when you get into debates, you always have people. He never answered. Did you
Yeah.
see that? He couldn't answer that verse. He never did, or he took this completely out of context. This is the same stuff over and over. So rarely do you have a debate where the person says, "I lost." Most of the debates that we have happen on the sidewalk or in campus. I've had a debate one time inside of Ohio State. It was in front of a bunch of lawyers, and I debated a guy who was a professor and a big shot in the ACLU on free speech. And the name of the debate was called Yelling Fire in a Theater. And I came from Los Angeles to debate this guy. I mean, this was the podium. You had a $500,000 chandelier in between us. It was done very properly. This guy was very, distinguished, older fella, well educated against a street preacher like me. And, it looked like it was going to be a knockout punch. We went at it for quite some time on free speech. They wanted to hear my response versus this guy who is a bigwig with the ACLU. And it was in a big theater. It was in a big theater that you would see kind of on TV at a college campus. It was, completely full and just standing room only as he and I went at it. But rarely do you have somebody say, "I lost." Boy, did I get my butt kicked out there. Yeah. Usually I won, and I can care less. Let's just hear what Quincy has to say, and you'll hear what this other brother has to say, because there's people that, can kind of go either way. Those are the ones I'm concerned about.
Right. And if anybody has questions about your being impartial, all you have to do is look at the debate you moderated between Kevin Deegan and I on the King James stuff. You're a King James guy, and you weren't, trying to go. You actually asked questions on both positions. And by the way, I'm not going to say won the debate, and I don't think James said it either. I think it was a really good discussion. I don't think it was more of a debate. I think it was two brothers having a discussion about two different positions. And so I don't think it was a win or lose on either one of us.
Yeah, and much like most of the times I'll host something like that, I'm not going to critique things because a person's response can take over an hour.
Yeah,
I'm just hitting some stuff, and when it's Q&A time, hopefully somebody else will pick up where I left off and have things clarified. But I understand when you have these debates, just one answer can take an hour and a half easy. And we're trying to make it, within 5 minutes here. So, and then I'll move on to another topic. It's not, that I'm making this thing fast. It's just, there's a lot more of the things. And during Q&A time, then you can get clarification. So that's the whole purpose and motive behind it.
And I just want to make sure, because I know people say, "Well, you're a Trinity, Ruben. But it doesn't matter. You've moderated debates, even if you agree with one side. I think you were, even me. I'm not you're a King James guy. I'm not. Everybody knows that. But I don't think So just watch that if you want to see how he moderated. You don't have to listen. Just watch how Ruben did it, and you'll see he's not going to interject his own opinion to try to sway it towards the guy that he agrees with.
The same questions I ask one will be asked of the other. Mm-hmm. And I don't give them the questions in advance. There's some debates where you give the question in advance. When I had this big debate at Ohio State, this professor wanted to know if I can give him my questions and my response. And I'm like, no, it's not going to happen.
Why would you do that?
That's not. Yeah, absolutely. Why should I give them to you? So these guys had no idea what was going to be asked, and they're just answering as we go along.
Right.
And that's how the debate would happen. But I'm not there to have Quincy attacked and beat down. Let's just hear his side. That's all.
Yep. God turns them over to a reprobate mind. Does not sound like God turns them back to a sober mind very readily, ?
Well, when he turns them over to a reprobate mind, you almost have to let them go. They have no conscience. They have no God in their life. They've quenched the Holy Ghost so much, he's removed his conscience, his spirit, his conviction from them, and they're in very bad state. I I would have to question whether these people can actually get saved, technically. But not everybody is a reprobate. A guy like Fred Phelps, he believed all homosexuals were reprobate. I don't. I believe they have the potential to, but
Yeah.
not all of them are. And so, but once I believe you receive that reprobate status, in my opinion, it's pretty much done. God just said, "I'm done with you. I'm over." And his conscience is gone. The Holy Ghost convicting you is gone. God's spirit is just removed from him.
And I agree for the most part, except I do think reprobates can still be saved. I just think that I'm not saying they will, but I think there's a possibility, even if it's a 0.001 chance. But I'm not going to sit there and debate with a reprobate for an hour and a half like I would somebody who's not a reprobate, who there's and you make a good point, Ruben, because we go to pride events to preach. Not every homosexual is reprobate. We know that because we have ex-homosexuals that preach with us.
That's right.
So
that's right.
And the Bible does say to rebuke them publicly so that others fear sinning.
That's right. And I would say, Rich, the homosexuals that I've called a reprobate, I can probably count on one hand. Okay, don't think I use that term loosely.
Right.
I'm very loosely because I know the consequence of it.
Yep.
This is why I don't. Oh, he's just a reprobate. Oh, he's just a reprobate. That to me, I think when you do something like that, from my perspective, I have to at least point whether God is actually going to actually save you.
Right.
I think you've turned him off so much that he's just, that's my definition of a reprobate. But I don't use that word very often, and I would encourage you to use that word, break only in emergency.
I guess this is to the gun stuff. Why don't you trust Jesus? I'm pretty sure Scripture talks about how Jesus dealt with negative energy.
Well, you can still trust Jesus. It's not either or. It's not like if you own a gun, you don't trust Jesus. It's just that's what you do to protect yourself. If we didn't have guns, there'd be knives to protect yourself. If we didn't have knives, there'd be rocks to protect yourself. Are you going to say no knives, no rocks? Just because you have a weapon doesn't mean that you trust that weapon and not God. Tonight, when I go to bed, I'm not going to get dressed up in cami clothes, camouflage my face, go find a dark corner with a weapon. Come on, baby, come on inside my house.
That's right.
I resent the day I have to use that weapon. But it has nothing to do with my faith in God. Nothing at all. For you to even assume that is ludicrous.
I look at it as people like, so I trust Jesus to make sure if I have to use it, it aims straight and goes right in. But,
yes.
Ruben, this is what I say. I think people like us that have guns, we have them hoping we never have to use them.
That's right.
Because, and I don't know if people here ever shot anything. I recently had to put a dog down. A dog. Do you know how hard that was to do? I used to be like, oh yeah, if I have to do it, no big deal. But when it came time to actually do it and put the bullet in its head, not exactly an easy thing to do. And you're talking about a dog. So you think it's easy to go ahead and shoot a human being, no matter how evil they are? Do you really think it's going to be that easy to just point a gun and fire at them and take a human life? No. It's not. Nobody's out here, like you said, come on, man, come in the house. Like no one's doing that. And if you are, you're the kind of person that should not have a gun.
Absolutely. I'll be outside your execution when the government executes you. Have a banner and I can travel.
Did you see the tweet where George Floyd even hated transgenders?
No, I haven't seen that. I knew he hated pregnant women, but I didn't know the tranny.
Let's see. Satan, okay. Question. I get. There's a lot of comments. I understand Jim Jones became an atheist the last few years when he was cult. Yeah. Let's Let's see. Sharpen your swords. Okay. Now who wears the tinfoil hat? I think that's more of a joke. Richard Ruben, they put the tinfoil hat on, they take it off, they put it on, they take it off, they put it on. Yeah. I mean, Ruben, do you see this? Do you see the conspiracy now that it was a psyop because, I don't know, they're saying that the shoes in the camera from the school are different than the shoes on the body cam footage? That they're, you know, like, I'm like, okay, why? Why would they do this? Because the government certainly doesn't want people not to like the transgenders. Why would they fake this? It makes no sense.
Yeah, you know, how about just accepting the fact that, you know, it walked in, it shot everything up, and it's dead? How about just, you know, why do we need to Hollywood everything? You know, people that do the conspiracy, they need drama in their life. Their life has to be one big, you know, drama scene. You know, it can be so obvious, and they don't want to do it. You might say, "Hey, look at that nice-looking cat." No, I think that's a raccoon. Why would you say it's a cat? Everything's an argument with these guys. You know, just accept the fact for what it is. Elvis is dead. Tupac's in hell. You know, why try to make something like that? So, yeah, Tupac's in hell, and you know, unless you have millions of dollars, you're gonna be sued like Alex Jones. How about it just happened? That's all. It just happened.
Ruben, I'd like to remind you to use her pronouns, which is was, were.
Was, were. Oh boy.
Ruben Israel, why are you American Christians so obsessed with guns? Jesus never carried. Don't you guys have faith in God?
I'm in Los Angeles, and out in LA, we are obsessed with vehicles. You can say the same thing about a person's car out here. You know, out here in LA, they wash their car maybe twice a week. You know, they want to make sure it's shiny. So, you know, why make an issue out of guns? It's many things. You know, a person can be happy over a lot of things. But in America, we have this thing called the Constitution. It's your right to own a weapon. Wow. It's your right to vote. It's your right to have free speech on the sidewalk. I'm just exercising my free speech and my right to own a gun.
Jesus never carried. The Bible, and doesn't the Bible say if you live by the gun, you'll die by the gun?
That's right. And Rich, I don't know about you, but I don't live by the gun. Owning a gun doesn't mean you live by the gun. A bank robber, a gang member would live by the sword is the exact terminology. They didn't have guns back then.
I was going to say, what a way to twist that. And you like to point out, Ruben, when Peter cut the ear off of that guard, Jesus didn't say, "Peter, don't you have faith in me? Go get rid of that sword."
That's right. He told them, put it back in the sheath. Holster that weapon. And that sword was not a kitchen utensil. But to live by the sword, that's a bank robber. To live by the sword, right, that's some gang member that loves to shoot his gun this way. So when he gets shot 35 times by the nice police officer in the back, hey, I don't have a problem with that. He lived by the sword. He's going to die by the sword.
That's right. And that's what and by the way, when he told the people, and remember, this was in this Good Samaritan story about sell your cloak and buy a sword. You know, traveling that road was very dangerous. That was for self-defense. So if people are allowed to defend themselves, and it says here, should we put our faith in God and not try to save our life? Well, fine. Then you go running in the next time a stranger goes to school, go run the school and say, "Shoot me, I'm here." I'm willing to bet you're not going to do that.
No. There'll be a puddle of orange, a yellow liquid on the floor there, right where you're standing.
Let's see. When do the Jews start liking Jesus?
Oh, I'm sure the moment they're dead, then they really appreciate Jesus Christ. Oh, instantly they'll do that.
I think he was asking after, what does he say? After tribulation, during tribulation, when do the Jews, I guess he's saying, when do the Jews get saved?
That's up to God's call. That depends on God when He wants to do it. I'm sure God wants them saved right now.
He
You know,
does.
the Bible says God does want them saved. It's just they're the ones that are quenching the Holy Ghost and rejecting Him. But
Oh,
I'm sure if it were up to God, He'd have them saved now.
there's some crazy eisegesis. Why do you need to protect yourself? Doesn't the Bible say if we try to save our life, we lose it?
Okay, don't wear safety belts. I mean, the argument is so weak. It's amazing. How about why are you just so anti-gun? How
Yeah.
about that? I mean, you're just anti-gun. That's all.
And if you don't want to have a gun, don't get one.
That's right.
It's
That's
okay.
not a problem.
We'll still
And
protect
let
you.
me tell you, if guns ever become illegal here in the state, I'm not going to give you my gun.
That's
I'm
right.
going to give you the parable of the 10 virgins and those 5 that didn't have the oil. They didn't prepare, so they're going to suffer. So you'll understand that parable very well. But if it gets to the point, then you don't have to worry about a gun if you think you don't need one.
That's right.
But
And
don't impose yourself on me.
it's funny, Ruben, because all the people now with the transgender, they talk about, oh, gun rights, we got to take the guns away. And, what I found funny was I said, because they always like to tell us, right? If you don't like drag queens, don't go to a drag show. Well, if you don't like guns, then you don't get one. It's the same people, right? They're telling us, just don't go to drag show if you don't like it. Okay, fine. Well, by using your same logic, let's judge you as you judge us. You don't like guns, then don't get a gun. But don't tell me I can't have a gun. I'm going to spit it back.
The rate, brother, for people who have died of an overdose is amazing. In fact, I think I'll post something like that on Facebook tomorrow. And it all pretty much starts from a joint, a little bit of marijuana, and it mushrooms.
Yes.
So how about if we just remove smoking dope? These same people that are anti-gun, then you'll hear them complain.
Yep.
Oh, then you'll hear them say, no, you can't do this. If you try to use their logic on them, it's unfair and it doesn't work. Guns don't kill people. People do.
That's right.
That weapon that individual had takes a finger to pull the trigger.
It
takes
does?
money to buy. Whatever. She had a split hoof. It took a split hoof to pull the trigger on that weapon.
Well, I didn't know that. I thought the gun just sat there. I mean, so you're telling me, Ruben, if I put a gun down and say, okay, ahead, they're not going to do it? It's not going to shoot itself?
No, you don't have to feed the gun. You don't have to water the gun. You don't take the gun out for a walk at night. It's amazing. It just gets put there, and you hope you don't ever have to use it again.
Yeah, and I think people misunderstand that when you talk about owning a weapon, because you said something a few minutes ago that if you ever get to a point in this country that things get so bad, it doesn't matter whether you can have a gun or not. You're going to want one. Like you said, prepare.
That's right.
And believe me, when you're in a place where somebody's doing something bad, you're going to wish that you either had one or had somebody there that had one. You're going to be very thankful if you're in a church and somebody comes in to shoot up your church. You're going to be thankful for the guy that takes down that shooter. And I guarantee you, and I pray to God that never happens to you, but if it ever does, you're going to change your attitude. And,
in the early 80s, Rich, we have our ear to the track all the time. And we knew there was going to be problems with guns. So we bought guns knowing certain weapons that were going to be illegal, so they're grandfathered in. And one of these days, they'll probably start with just a city, a county, a state, and then that cancer will spread.
Right.
So, but I don't think our military is going to go inside and take your weapon. You talk to a real military guy. One of the worst battle scenes is house to house.
Yes.
Because they don't know where the person is. They don't know how many guns are in the house. So if you live in this fantasy that they're just going to knock the door down and come inside and rush, it's a fantasy. Okay. Most military would not do that.
It's illegal.
They would have issues. Yes. But they would have issues if they got orders to go out and take their civilians and kill them.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Well, the Constitution not the Constitution, but it's called Posse Comitatus. They're literally, you're not allowed to do that. Like, remember in New Orleans during that flood when they had the National Guard there, and they were going house to house. Even those guys were saying this doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
No military, no real military person who loves this country and loves God is going to come to your home to try to disarm you.
That's right. And they were looking for survivors during that time.
Right. And if they do come to disarm you, what comes after is not going to be good. And history shows us that.
Yes.
Now,
that's
Ruben,
why I said they will not do it.
You mentioned about drugs. Well, how about this stat? In this country, in America, 10% of the working age population dies because of alcohol. Whether it's drunk driving, whether drunk driver kills them, dies because of alcohol. On that beach in South Padre Island, we were preaching, a 17-year-old got drunk and drowned in that ocean because of alcohol. Alcohol kills more people than guns will ever kill in this country, but no one wants to talk about that. Just saying.
Yes. And Rich, do you think some of these anti-gun people are the same anti-COVID shot people?
No.
It's
no. They're probably pro COVID shot.
They've got to be.
Which, by the way, another stat just came out the other day. I don't know if you heard it, Ruben, that more people are dying from COVID now that are vaccinated than unvaccinated.
I heard that, I don't know who it was, but one of the makers of the vaccine actually apologized, if not today, it was yesterday, that they said, I think we did go too far. I think we didn't need that shot on so many people. So I heard it on the radio. I've been trying to look it up on if I had some time, and I'll probably bump into it and see what I can do for you.
I am a raging alcoholic, and I'm not proud of it. Okay. That was Dave Hughes Farm that said that. I don't know if you want to. You said I'm a raging alcoholic.
Dave, you definitely, I will tell you right now, Dave, if you died in your sin, you're going to hell. God discriminates against drunkenness. You wouldn't want your kid to get in a bus if that driver was drinking. You wouldn't want somebody to get out of a bar drunk and drive his car. And so there's reasons why our land, does have certain drinking problems.
Right.
And you don't want to get drunk. If you want to argue, well, a glass of wine, that's fine. But the Bible makes it very clear, a drunkard shall not inherit the kingdom of God. And if you said you're a rage, I got to wonder why. Can't you have faith in God that he can remove that? He can, but unfortunately, it takes your willpower too. You have to want.
I'm sorry. He was being sarcastic. Yeah. It didn't look
Thank
like
you.
that.
Okay. Everything I just said, I take back.
Unless you are a raging alcoholic, then you meant it for that person.
Yes.
So, Ruben, just real quick, can you give a different heresy? Because now there's a pre-trib thing. Somebody says about pre-trib is heresy.
It's not heresy.
No, and again, that's one of those words, like you said, reprobate, that Christians just like to throw around. I don't think they know what a heretic is.
Yeah, it's not heresy at all. It's, today when you disagree with somebody, you're a hater. Today, when you disagree with somebody, you're a racist. Within the Christian community, you disagree with somebody, you're a heretic. Heretic is getting almost borderline reprobate, but in the spiritual sense.
Right.
So I would avoid using that word. No, they're not a heretic. A heretic would be, much, much worse than that. Somebody that believed,
oneness.
There's a person. Yeah, that goes against the character of God. But there are people out there that believe that God has both vagina and penis. God can roll on the ground and have intercourse with himself. Okay? These are people that I meet. These are people that walk up to me. Now, this guy's really pushing heresy.
Yeah.
Because somebody's pro, mid-trib, post-trib, pre-trib, that he can just be somebody who's, not understanding Bible. I wouldn't go as far as call him a heretic.
No, and you and I disagree on this issue, Ruben. But you know what's funny? It's we never even talk about it unless we're like busting each other's chops about it. But other than that, it never even comes up, the subject of rapture and all that stuff. Never comes up.
Unless the issue is there, hey, there's much more that we're going to do. And, for us to call each other heretics because we disagree, that's not going to happen. There's a lot of people, not over something like that.
Because even though you may not believe in a pre-trib position, and I do, Ruben, we both agree that we should be living our lives as if there is a pre-trib, whether there is or not.
That's right.
So, I don't even know why people fight about that, but somebody asked a question, is it a sin to date a hermaphrodite? Well, are there even hermaphrodites?
Ray Comfort has a program. Maybe, he's got all the answers. How about, I don't know if that's a loaded question.
Well, it's a weird question because most people that are born with that, by the way, it's such a small percentage, but
yes,
Jamie Lee Curtis was born that way. But they usually take on the, if there's like ovaries inside, then they'll go ahead and remove or do surgery to remove any characteristics of a male or vice versa. So I don't think that there's any real hermaphrodites as adults. But I'll ask you something. If you're a man and you date someone who everything looks like a woman, but you pull down their whatever and you find that they've got a penis, you're probably gay if you like that. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yes. We're starting to break up again, Rich.
Ray Comfort is a good show, right? But you're too.
Absolutely.
Hey. More like a habitual.
We'll take one more question if they got it.
Yeah, well, so the guy with the drunkard thing, he said he was not kidding. He's more of a habitual drunk. Wait, more like I really have a strong thing with Jesus. That he is a drunk, that he gets drunk regularly, but he says he has a strong thing with Jesus.
That's, homosexuals believe in Jesus. Murderers believe in Jesus. A lot of people, Paul Hill, who I talked about earlier, he believed in Jesus.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, your works are going to defy you. And it's not my opinion. The Bible makes it very clear. Galatians 5:19 through 21, a drunkard is not allowed in God's kingdom. Yeah. So, God does frown on drunkenness. It's not my opinion at all. It is Bible.
Right.
And so you can say you love Jesus all you want. Jesus said, if you love him, you will obey him.
That's right.
And he demands obedience, and obedience that's bad. Now, let me ask you this. What would you think if Rich and I were talking and this was some beer? And, during the conversation that we're doing, I'd keep taking a swig. What would you think of that? What would people think of that? It gives the impression that it's not good. So I would avoid, like I said, maybe having a glass of wine every year with your wife to celebrate her anniversary. I wouldn't go there. But when you said drunkenness, that makes things a little bit different. It's drunkenness that God frowns on.
Right. So
it's the word you use that he said you will not inherit the kingdom of God. Believing in Jesus, if you did, he'd convict you of it, and you wouldn't do that.
Well, if you believe in Jesus and you're still sinning, congratulations, you've achieved demon status. Because even the demons believe.
At least they tremble.
Right, exactly. If you don't tremble when you're sinning about Jesus or anything else, you're probably worse to think about that. You might be worse than a demon.
Yeah.
And they
recognize
there's a verse Jesus. That said that. And they recognized Jesus when he walked up. Oh my gosh, are you here before the appointed time? They knew when he walked up who he was.
Yeah. And you know what they said, Rich? Are you here to torment us?
That's right.
Their time isn't going to be a vacation.
Nope.
Their time will be torment in hell.
In his presence, by the way. Revelation says he'll be tormented day and night in the presence of the angels and the Lamb. But he loves you, and he has a wonderful plan for your life.
Yeah, isn't that God like schizophrenic? I love you now, but tomorrow I hate your guts.
I'm going to throw you in hell and watch you burn.
At least we have the common sense to say he's angry with you right now.
Right. So, all right, there you go. 2 hours and 5 minutes, brother.
Hey, not a problem. Good thing we started when we did. I hope you guys were edified. I hope if you're anti-abortion that you can understand why certain groups and people might hate some of us. And you might want to talk to some of the old guys. You know, the new guys, they know nothing. They're absolutely, oblivious. All they do is hear he's a Mason or he's a this. But that was the root, what I gave you, why they hated me.
They hate you. They don't hate me. They hate you.
Well, God bless you, and keep us in prayer. There's going to be a cluster of us out over in Salt Lake City, and we'll be preaching to the Mormons. I'm sure they say they love God, and unlike some people who believe in Jesus, Mormons don't drink, and yet they're going to hell. So, they have faith in their religion. Their religion has taken them away from the Bible, and this weekend we'll be knocking on their door. Thank you. God bless you. Hope you enjoyed yourself.
Truth is truth, lies are lies. God don't take no alibis. Right is right, wrong is wrong. Don't go walking where you don't belong. To be undecided is to be decided against the Lord who wants your heart. He heals the sick and the brokenhearted, a life forever in his love.